all your efforts this year matter. And they will...
Postman's
here. Hello and welcome to the Lib Dem Podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in or listening in, depending on where you are watching or listening. Today, it's just me and Richard, the dynamic duo that got this started. Richard. Hi, Richard. How are you doing?
Hi. Nice to see you again, John.
For all those that don't know, Richard is the leader of the Liverpool Lib Dems and has been within the party for... I'll say decades, because that kind of covers me, so I don't do anything insulting.
It's only 54 years, actually. So
I was going to say 5 decades, and then I thought, oh no, maybe I've got that wrong.
Well, in my 5th decade, but I haven't finished it yet. Yeah.
And obviously, all of you guys listening, if you listen to this straight away, we're right in the middle of the local elections. In fact, the postal votes for most people start landing from tomorrow, actually. So I know that you'll all be busy, you'll be mentally stressed, you'll be physically knackered, but we hope we can give you a little bit of Lib Dem-ness on the podcast to keep you going.
And some entertaining jokes and singing, didn't you say before, John?
Not from my point of view, no. Although I will have to say the campaign thing I've seen that arrived just yesterday is that I think it was a Lib Dem put, on our leaflets, our focus leaflets, I'm voting Lib Dem because of what he put one from his dog, which I thought was very Lib Dem thing to do. Yeah. And I'm amazed I haven't done it.
Very vox pop, yeah. Well, your dog would lose votes, I would have thought. But
outrageous. Comment below, people, if you think there's nothing wrong with my dog. But we'll talk a little bit about, first of all, the campaign, how it's going right now. I mean, my impression on the door, Richard, is that people genuinely, I mean, Liverpool might be a slight exception because there's so much going on, but there's been a lot of people that aren't going to vote this year. I would say there's kind of because it's not on people's minds. I would say, we're in the middle of a pandemic, the country's slightly opening up. Is a local election, even though as important as they are, top of people's agendas at the moment? I would say no. But what's it like with you, Richard?
Well, Liverpool is always a bubble of its own. Some people have bubbles of 6. We have the bubble of 500,000 usually. And I think the voters here split into 2. People who are much more likely to vote than usual because they're really hacked off with what's going on. And those are Lib Dem Labour switchers, basically. If I had £1 for everyone and said, hey, Richard, I'm still Labour, but not in Liverpool, I could afford the campaign, basically. And then the other half are people who are saying, oh, it's bloody awful. They're saying exactly the same thing. And I'm just not going to vote. So for every one we're taking from Labour, there's one that'll stay at home. But just looking at it more widely outside Liverpool, we're being buoyed at the moment from going from some quite depressing opinion poll figures to ones that are certainly moving in the right direction. I think you and I predicted that when we got back on the streets, on the door knocker, people see us, are reminded of our relevance, they come back to us. And all the opinion polls are basically indicating that that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think the opinion polls also have talked about Labour's troubles in particular nationally. And I'm kind of getting that. I've been very active since we were allowed to go knocking on doors. I pretty much have been out several times a week and spoken to hundreds upon hundreds of people. That Labour is doing nothing at the moment. And I don't actually think that's Keir Starmer's fault too much. He is very vanilla and he is very bland. But he's just kind of getting gobbled up, swept up by, because the government has got the vaccine rollout. And so he's kind of stuck either way, really. If he criticises the government too much, he looks like he's at a time of crisis, not being political. But then he's not getting his team across. He's not getting his points across. So he's kind of damned either way, really, as Keir Starmer. But I genuinely do think that Labour are going to have a really bad local election. They might win in a couple of places. I mean, if they don't win Lancashire, and I know I go on about Lancashire quite a lot, but it is quite a bellwether kind of county in the terms of the Tories only need to lose 6 seats. Labour lost 3 seats in one part of the county called Rossendale by less than 100 votes. Actually, some of them by only in teens of votes. If they don't get that back, because 2017 was really good year for the Tories, then I can see this as just being, if Labour don't take back Lancashire, they'll be really disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, I find it hard to judge because of our special circumstances. The only Labour leader in Liverpool that ever gets mentioned isn't Keir Starmer. It's still Joe Anderson, who is, of course...
Joe Anderson, I was going to say Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, there'll be a few who mention him who pine for the good old days of going absolutely nowhere.
That's not true. That's not true. They went backwards. Let's just get that.
Well, yeah, my apologies. But Keir Starmer just doesn't inspire, does he?
No.
You could imagine him drawing his gown together in court and saying, "My lord," and on behalf of my learned friends. He goes to the House of Commons as though he's a barrister. Now, I'm not against barristers. They come in very useful sometimes, particularly if they're on your side. But he's got no fire in his belly. And I think people want fire in their belly at the moment. And he's just coming over as Mr. Anemic.
Well, yeah, and it's a phrase, if you try and please everyone, you please nobody. And I think that's because Labour don't know how do we get back the red wall seats, but also how do we deal with, kind of suburban Labour voters. And at the moment, no, everyone's just going, nah. But you're right. You're right about the Lib Dem polls. It is good. And I should just point out, because I started off saying about I think turnout will be down. One of the key factors in increasing turnout is down to us. Is what we do locally. All the data we've had for years and years and years shows if they get a leaflet, it increases their chance of vote. If they get a letter, it increases their likelihood. If they knock on a door, I think even just one door knock, 1 5-minute conversation with Richard Kemp will increase turnout by 20%.
Probably not with me, no. But...
No, maybe that might be dropping down. But the point is, you've got 16 days, 15 days to go out and knock on as many doors because local elections never get massive turnout anyway. So getting your vote out is absolutely crucial.
Well, the interesting to me is the postal votes, and I don't know what it's like everywhere, but there's a record number in Liverpool. My ward, which normally has about 1,650 people on the postal vote register, now got 2,100 and something, 47,000 at the last count across the city. And we do know that in wards like Church Ward, Woolton, Chilwell, we normally win the postal vote.
Yeah.
And I think that's just increasing in those 3 wards, the size of the majority for our ward candidate, slightly different than perhaps for the mayoral candidate. So we're very optimistic because once you build up a decent lead in the postal vote, someone else has to do a hell of a lot. And I thought it was a Liverpool phenomenon, but I've never seen a more lackluster Labour campaign in this city. Yeah. They're trying to defend wards with one poorly printed, rhizoed newsletter in my ward, which they won't be fighting hard. They haven't even finished the ward yet, but they're trying to defend wards now with drivel. They haven't done anything.
I do think both the Tories and Labour, and you don't really have Tories, have felt a little bit kind of slow to get back into the swing of things. They certainly don't have a lot of activists on the ground. They have spent money here because obviously we have combined locals and counties and police and crime, etc. So they've had more money to be able to spend, and they have spent some, but it's still not anything fantastic. And it just feels like everyone's just a bit stuck in a rut. And maybe that's why engagement is a little bit down on the street as well. But it is interesting what you said about postal voters as well, because I've seen some areas that some councils have been really proactive and sent out a postal vote application form to every single citizen. So in Preston, what they've done is only to people who are shielding. But we actually in Preston, we haven't had a massive uplift. We have not seen a dramatic increase in postal votes, which is because the postal votes, as of while we're recording, you can only register to apply by postal vote for another couple of hours because this is we're recording this on Tuesday. So I know that our postal vote recruitment campaign has actually been really successful. I'm actually quite happy with what we've done. So I know that we've done that. It doesn't look like the other 2 parties have done anything.
Yeah.
So if we have targeted the postal votes remorselessly for a number of years because if turnout on the day is about 20% across the whole of Preston, turnout on the postal votes is up to around 70%. So like you said, if you can get a good lead, then you can do it. And people, again, watching and listening, you've got a couple of days now. Just go and knock on doors on postal voters. Go and see how they do. Your postal vote, get out the vote. Go see how you're doing. Are they doing well in this patch compared to this patch? Where might you need to do a little bit extra work? Use this as a dry run before your main push in the final week.
Yeah, well, that's true here. About 80% of the postal votes in Liverpool get returned. But that would mean when you think there's a 30% turnout, that there's a less than 25% turnout in the rest of the population.
Yeah, exactly the same in Preston. Yeah, exactly the same.
So, yes, so we've just finished our first sort of handwritten letter. We've got another letter will go out Thursday night and Friday morning because they're being dispatched on Thursday here, a little later than others because they had to get 2 mayoral booklets out first. So those have got to go out. We've got one which doesn't feature me, so I won't show it to you. And then the city mayor's got to go out, and then the postal votes. So it's a bit more complicated.
You can see just behind me. Our postal vote letters have all gone. So that is our remaining. Well, not empty boxes. That's the next run. These are non-postal voters who will be getting their stuff. So it's like I say, it's because most people will know this who are listening that on average about 50% of postal voters will vote within 48 hours of getting their ballot. They'll get it. They'll do it.
Some places, I reckon, Church Ward will be over by Sunday night.
Hello, John from the Lib Dem Podcast here. We are delighted to say that this episode is sponsored by Prater Rains. Now more than ever, you need a professional-looking online presence and website. Prater Rains have been helping Liberal Democrat campaigns succeed for 18 years. Their Lib Dem Foci package combines a website, social media and email system to help Lib Dems win. You'll receive great support from real people, fair pricing and a huge range of features to choose from. Prater Rains are already the bespoke developers for Lighthouse, Lib Dem Draw Online and the LD Directory. They combine a talented system design with an unrivaled understanding of our party, our data and our systems. To find out more, check out the Prater Rains website at praterrains.co.uk/liberal-democrats. This podcast has been sponsored by the Katora Coffee Club, the UK's most environmentally friendly coffee club. There are over 400 independent roasters in the UK, each one crafting coffee in their own unique style. Katora Coffee Club works with some of the best to take you on a voyage of coffee discovery. The Katora Coffee Club delivers ethically sourced and independently roast coffee directly to your door. Each month you'll receive between 2 and 4 bags of coffee and their monthly extract magazine. Even better for Lib Dem podcast listeners, use the code BETTERCOFFEE to save 5% on subscriptions and gift boxes for a limited time only. All Katora Coffee Club boxes are carbon negative and offset the CO2. So why not do some good, enjoy some great coffee and check out the website www.katoracoffeeclub.com. Now, back to the podcast. Lisa pointed this out in the last podcast. If you are absolutely sure you think you are doing well in some areas, because there will be Lib Dems that are stretched. It's a very strange time right now. This is why knocking on the door is so important to see. So in my ward of Cadley, we are seeing no movement in our vote whatsoever. We won it with 60% of the vote last time. I see very little threat there at all. So some of our neighbouring wards that we took from the Tories for the first time in 2019, just maybe you need to shift your balance of kind of where your priorities are and just make those calls.
Well, the difficulty for that in Liverpool is that I'd normally agree with you. So we know that we're going to do well in our target wards and perhaps a bit better than we'd thought. So do we leave them, or because there's a possibility that we could win the mayoral vote, do we try and get all the vote up in our wards? So typical Liberals, we've tried to do both.
I mean, that's right.
Because we have to. But the reception on the door, I mean, I would guess that we were out in Hunts Cross ward on Sunday, And there were only 4 of us, but the other side of the road, the Labour Party were meeting, and there were 7 of them, I think. So we started off, the 4 of us, before we finished, the Labour Party had already gone. So I would guess that in Liverpool, they're getting the response that we used to get in 2011-12.
Yeah.
Real anger. If one of them comes round here, Richard, I'll...
But we'll wait and see. Whatever it is, this election, it's going to be interesting. And if there is a drop in turnout, I think you have to be prepared for unusual results. I think we've talked about in the past. I think incumbency is going to be really important, but also, odd things happen when not many people turn out, and so there'll be. And for all those Lib Dems, whether you're trying to take a seat, keep a seat, whatever you're doing, just keep going, guys, and keep your heads up. And I know you're in this point right now is probably one of the most tiring points of your campaign. But just
you can't
keep on
quite
trucking.
see the end, can you? But it's coming up somewhere. Although my election will finish at midnight on the 2nd of May, because Erica has to go into hospital for an eye operation, and we have to self-isolate. So I can go and do a bit of delivering. I can't meet anyone. I can't talk to anyone, and I can only go to the count for an hour. So at the end of the day, family comes first.
Absolutely, and if possible, or you can always phone Canvas. That's
we won't be doing nothing, honestly.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just think sitting in the window here is very good, particularly at school opening and closing time. If you're wondering who I'm waving to, it's voters going past.
So we've talked a little bit about the campaign. Now, some of the big news stories that have happened in the last week or so since our last recording is probably the big one actually happened a couple of days ago. And we don't normally talk about sport on this podcast, but the decision by top clubs in Europe to do a breakaway has kind of hit home across. I saw American chat shows talking about it yesterday. So it really has hit. Obviously, football is the biggest sport in the world. These are some of the biggest sporting institutions in the world. And they have decided to break away and do their own thing. Now, some will say this has always been on the cards since the Premiership came into about, the money that came into football. But it's very interesting what's come out from it, because I've been very nervous, because as everyone knows, I'm a huge rugby fan, and whether this is a foreshadow of what might come in other sports, or is just football in a league of its own, literally. Richard, living in Liverpool, one of the clubs that will be going, what's your impression?
Well, I came out very quickly yesterday morning when it broke and said that I totally disapproved of it, and Liverpool City Council should do what it could to oppose it. I thought I might have been going out on a limb, but I was doing that as a matter of principle. I know how important football is in this city. I know the kids who dream of an Everton or Liverpool jersey, who hope they can progress through a variety of leagues. But I'm also aware that people have already started turning off that element of the professional game. So both Manchester United and Liverpool now have clubs which are again progressing from the lower orders of the leagues, which are owned by former supporters of those two big clubs. I mean, the Liverpool team gets 5,000 attendance on a regular basis, as does the Manchester one. And to me, that's the way that it will have to go if Liverpool and the two Manchesters decide to be elitist. Football is a game from people kicking around a bit of paper in a slum in Africa, through everything to an elite game. We need elite games, but it shouldn't be an exclusive elite.
And I think we can see versions of what you notice how the French and in particular the German teams are not involved. Because, and again, I fell out of love with football a few years ago because of the money, because of the corruption, because of play acting and the players on the pitch. It just kind of thought, I've had enough of this. It just annoyed me too much. But if you look at the German leagues where 51% of the clubs have to be fan owned. You haven't got your Abramoviches owning it and sucking all the money and life out of a club. Because I might not follow football that much anymore, but I understand how important Burnley is to Burnley, how North End here in Preston, how some people define themselves almost first and foremost by the club they support.
Oh, certainly do in Liverpool. I mean, the standard question you get in Liverpool is, you're blue or you're red? Some people get a little perplexed when I say, well, actually, I don't really like football. Doesn't mean to say I don't recognise the importance. But I did find out that I wasn't on a limb because all the public reaction is against it. And there were people, lifelong supporters, who burnt Liverpool flags last night outside the ground when Liverpool were playing. That to me is very significant. I also wonder, without any proof, but looking at some of the names involved, whether this involves money laundering, whether it involves illicit profits being taken out of countries. I don't think the fans, the people that I respect, that go in, week out, win or lose, a bit like Liberal Democrats, really. They're out there in the cold all throughout the year. Then they're just pawns to some of these people. Pay your money.
That's it. Yeah, that's right. The connection between club and fan is disintegrating for these top clubs because, as I said, they're just cash cows for the owners. And I'm not. This isn't a slight at the players or the management or the coaching team, anything like that. Including Jurgen Klopp has come out saying he thought it was a daft idea 2 years ago. He still thinks it's a daft idea now. And I will say, there's a lot of people saying all these players and managers should just walk away. That's very easy to say when it's not your livelihood.
When you're getting £250,000 a week or something.
Yeah, that's right. And, Kevin De Bruyne, who earns, £375,000 a week for Manchester City. That huge money has been in the game for a very long time, particularly in the top echelons of the Premiership. But it also strikes, what do we want? So there's, again, where does TV money go? And all this regarding sport in Britain, it's a very interesting dynamic, and particularly Jamie Stone has talked about this on a previous podcast of ours. Which, because you think about rugby has had big interest from an investment group, has come in and bought, CVC has come in and bought huge stakes in all the major rugby tournaments, both domestic and, say, something like the Six Nations. They will want return on that money.
Of course
they are not. They are not in it for the love of the game. And so, I mean, someone like me, I'm really worried that the Six Nations may not be on free-to-air television anymore. Coming forward, and these are the things that it's a slow trickle to eventually what happens.
And if you don't feed the bottom, eventually the bottom wither. So what's left above there? As it happens, I live next door to a professional footballer. Izzy Asgard is a player for Wigan. It's funny, he scored his first goal, so he got interviewed by Wigan Football News, and he's a Scouser. And so the chat show on full of comments said, I didn't know that's how Swedish people spoke. You know what I mean? Like
it's a bit like, what was it, Jan Molby, the Danish player for Liverpool, had the most fantastic Scandinavian scouse. It was absolutely tremendous. But we'll move on from football, because we've talked obviously a lot about Liverpool in that, but we've got to talk about some of the stuff that's going on in Liverpool. I mean, it actually came up in our full council meeting in Preston about the corruption and stuff that has been.
That was by you, was it?
Yeah, absolutely, it was by me. Yeah, when the Preston Labour Party wants to be associated with the Liverpool Labour Party, and then the Liverpool Labour Party is in such troubles, I might just mention it every now and again to them.
It's supposed to be setting up a bank with you.
Well, that was the question I asked. And so my
you
question,
trust the buggers with our money, you were saying.
Well, that was basically it. I said, given that the Liverpool Labour Party has got all these corruption charges and an investigation happening to them, is now the right time to be setting up a £20 million bank with them? And if it is, what questions have you asked to reassure the public? Of which the Labour cabinet member in Preston just went, don't worry about it. Amazingly enough, that got picked up by the press. But it is a huge story. The Tories are back in Liverpool. just because the Liverpool Labour Party have collapsed. So go on, give us, for people that don't know, Richard, give us a quick 1 minute kind of summary of what's happened in Liverpool with these corruption issues.
1 minute, bloody hell.
Okay, well, you could go on for an hour. I'm just trying to make it.
Okay, let me give you the headlines. Liverpool is officially the worst council in the country, according to a government inspection report. It's riddled with corruption and incompetence. The commissioners are coming in to oversee, although not run, part of our council. We've lost at least £100 million in a variety of ways, and the numbers are rising. There are 6 ongoing police investigations into various aspects of Liverpool work. And there have been 16 arrests of 15 people, one of whom was the political leader of the council. And what's clearly happened in Liverpool is to say that now the cork has come out of the bottle, all sorts of other things are following it. So I'm in discussion with 2 organisations in the city, unveiling some very unsavoury, perhaps even illegal, but certainly unsavoury stuff about Labour councillors. So if I was to write this into a fictional account, I'd have to leave half of it out, because you just say that's too ridiculous, Richard. Liverpool is an absolutely exceptional council for all the wrong reasons.
And so what is you, because it's strange, because you are the only opposition really in Liverpool. There's no Tories or anything like that. So what has been, from your point of view, you've been in the council for a very long time. You've seen most things in local politics, Richard. So what has it been like these last few weeks? I mean, because part of me worries when stories like this come out that people just think, well, all politicians are like that. We expect this from politicians. They're all crooked bastards, basically. So what has been the reception like on the door? Do you think, well, you're all the same?
Yes, there is a small element of that, but my own feeling is from people who largely don't vote or don't vote for us anyway. The feeling is that our Liberal Democrats are saying, get out there, lad, and we've had more money donated to us than I can remember. So there's that side of it, but the Labour vote is clearly splitting into 3. Those who haven't got a clue what's going on, who will vote Labour anyway. And I'm just amazed if the whole country knows about it. How can't some people in Liverpool? There are Labour people who are so annoyed that they are switching to us, without a doubt. And there are some Labour people who are equally annoyed but can't bring themselves to do that and won't vote. Now, that leaves us with a situation where, like all mayoral elections, we have an alternative vote system, a second vote. Joe Anderson only got 52% of the vote last time to my 21%. That's very, very clearly the second place. They won't get 52% this time. I'll give an absolute guarantee on that. So we will go to a second vote. So it will depend on how people use that second vote. And a lot of people won't use it because actually they don't understand the system.
And I mean, I did see an article in the paper, and I hope you don't mind me saying it, says, Richard Kemp has his time come. Which was interesting.
Well, I feel as though I've served my apprenticeship for 38 years and I might get the master's certificate. But yes, it was an interesting take on it from the Liverpool Echo. And of course, it just shows how ridiculous the system is. I could end up with 14 councillors, but in total control of the council.
Yeah. It's. I mean, it's interesting you talk about. We were planning on doing an episode about mayors and good, bad, indifferent. I mean, some people think, Andy Burnham's really done a job in highlighting some of the issues. I mean, a lot of people in Greater Manchester will also say he's also failed in quite a number of things as well. But obviously, and with the mayoral elections this time, what are your impressions of, is it something that has worked, not worked, waste of money? What's your impression on mayoral elections? Because we've got some very good Lib Dem mayors, we should point out as well in the country.
Yeah, my basic feeling is that it's difficult to demonstrate that they've done anything good, but quite easy to demonstrate that they have failed. So I don't know anything that I've seen happen in mayoral authorities that wouldn't have been done by a good leader and a good controlling party, sometimes parties. When I look at places like Liverpool, I warned at the time that we wouldn't be creating a mayor, we'd be creating an emperor, that if you put all the power into one pair of hands, it would get abused, and blow me, it has happened. But it's not only Liverpool. I've been working, helping Torbay Council, who took 2 years to recover from a failed mayoral system. We came in as the mayoral system ended after a second referendum. Look at Doncaster, a failure, a basket case for many years. So I don't think it's a good system. We have tried continually to get rid of the position. And in fact, I will change the name as the first thing I do. Within seconds of being elected, I would be known as the leader of Liverpool Council. I have to govern as the mayor, but I'll do that. I'll halve the salary. But the reason it works in Watford and Bedford is that we have different types of people. We have people who want to be scrutinised. We have people who want to involve the public, who see it as part of their job as mayor to go out and just talk to ordinary people. So we can mitigate a bad system, but it's still a bad system.
So do areas need figureheads? By the nature of them, because I'm someone, obviously, I don't believe in police and crime commissioners. I would see them scrapped. I just think scrap them, use the money to actually pay for ordinary policemen. And I think that's generally most Lib Dems standing across the country are saying, vote for me and I'll do everything I can to not be a police and crime commissioner anymore or try and change the law with it. But do areas need figureheads? You think of, it's a bad example now, but you thought of what Andrew Cuomo did in New York during the vaccine. Now he has got himself embroiled in all sorts of scandals since, but he was he was like a figurehead that people could turn to as opposed to Donald Trump at the time. So is there a role for figurehead kind of politicians?
Well, yes, and they're called leaders of the council in many cases. A lot of people can tell you who the leader of Manchester City Council is. Almost everyone knew Mike Story's name when he was the leader of Liverpool City Council. So yes, you do need someone to rally around who the press and the public and the community organisations and businesses could go to in the right way. And one of the problems is that people haven't been approaching the mayor in the right way. So yes, I think that the leader of the council is a very, very important position in an outgoing sense, as well as making sure the machinery works and the vision is correct.
Now, we both believe, I think, that more power should be given to local councils. I think that's it's fairly standard Lib Dem practice that we wanted to disseminate power to the lowest possible levels. Is kind of where we lowest practical level, I should just say. Now, I've always said to people, if you do that, because people say, use the phrase postcode lottery. Oh, it's not, as a really bad thing, but actually, if you give more local authorities more power, you have to accept that some of them will screw up. But I think generally they'll do better by having that power. I think the country will do better generally, but there'll be a Liverpool where something goes catastrophically wrong because of incompetence or corruption or whatever. Do you still believe that?
Absolutely. And yes, things will go wrong, not on the scale of Liverpool. I think that the government does have a role as the guarantor of due process. So make sure that the Liverpools and every other council for that matter are doing things transparently, are doing things legally, and are following due processes. So if we make a decision, what happens to it? It gets signed off, it gets dealt with properly. And the government has a right and a duty to do that. What the decisions then get taken are are a discussion between the councillors, who may or may not make up a majority, and the people of that area. The trouble is that that mightn't be in accordance with government policy. So if you give power away, you have to accept as a government that you lose some control. And one of the things that did depress me when we controlled so many councils in the first decade of this century, doesn't that make it sound as though we're well into the century now? But
it does, doesn't it?
Third decade. That so many Liberal Democrats said we want more power down from the government, please, but then didn't give any away when they control the council. Ordinary people can't handle it. Well, I'm an ordinary person.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a kind of weird mix because I was just talking about police and crime commissioners. So we don't need a politician in charge of the police, but there does need to be some sort of democratic oversight, which used to exist. You know, there were police panels within the county structures, etc. These things happened. But it's so, and again, that would be the same. So if a council is given more power, there would still be some sort of regulatory oversight. We're not just saying, okay, go and be the Republic of Bradford or whatever. But at the moment, I mean, I'm particularly with the Coronavirus Act, you've seen Alistair Carmichael very much fighting back about, some of these powers we have given the government over this last year. We really have to fight to make sure we get them back. We have done extraordinary limitations on our freedoms that we must now, as the pandemic hopefully starts to get under control, the Liberal in all of us should be thinking, okay, we need to make sure that the government gives back some of these powers.
And that's why I'm delighted how strongly the Liberal Democrat MPs are opposing the latest Justice Bill. But there are some signs that government is beginning to learn some lessons. For example, in the Health White Paper, which will become a bill, as I understand it, in May, it's a considerable improvement on the 2019 legislation that got scrapped, because they've realised, because of the pandemic, I think, the role that local government plays in the social determinants of health, the public health, the setting of a joint strategic needs assessment, things like that. So there is some feeling now that perhaps we went too far.
Yeah. Well, and on that, with us not wishing to go too far on this episode,
people should be out delivering, not listening to us.
Well, you know what? It's been really good. So I went to one of my deliverers this morning and said, we've just got one final section of the postal vote letters to get out. And I gave him it, and he said, is that it? And so I gave him an extra section as well. So my patch,
I'll teach him.
No, he volunteered quite willingly. So I'm not having to deliver this afternoon. I'm going to go straight outdoor knocking for the next 4 hours or something like that. And
that's why you've got the short sleeve shirt on.
I've got a short sleeve shirt on. I'm going to put some sun cream on and go do it. So to all Lib Dems out there, keep trying, keep fighting. This election is a funny old election. There is no doubt about it. But whether you win, lose, or draw, well, you're not going to draw. You can't draw. Well, you might do. But whether you win or lose, you hit your targets, you defend your seat or not. We have a new candidate who we were really excited about winning this time round. And the pandemic has just shut down a lot of our campaigning. And we said to him, look, don't worry. Sometimes it's a 2 or 3 election thing. All your efforts are worthwhile. And so go on, Nick, Richard.
Well, I think we're going to do better than most commentators would accept. Whenever we've been at 10% in the opinion polls, we've been getting 16, 17 or 18% in the people who bother to turn out in local elections. If I remember rightly, 10% is higher than the opinion polls were giving us when we went and took 750 gains in 2019. It's all to play for. It's all worth fighting for your community and our party. So could you just put a thing on the front of this, not to be turned on till 9 o'clock when you've had a beer and you've earned your rest?
Absolutely, yeah. There's always more things you can do. So thank you so much, Richard. No doubt we'll have you on the podcast again talking about whatever's going to happen in Liverpool. And also we've got loads of podcasts coming up. So we've got one that's about to come out about from the Disability Association, from the Lib Dems, talking about the great work they do if you're a candidate and a campaigner. But also we'll be doing all sorts of assessments from the elections, because I'm going to get very busy these next few weeks. But we'll have, going back, our 2-year anniversary, Richard, it will be coming up soon, because we did after the 2019 elections. That's when we first started, wasn't it? And so, very, very exciting. Do keep going out there. Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you so much to everyone who watches and listens, whether you listen on your podcast through all your podcast providers, whether you watch us on Facebook, whether you watch us on YouTube. Thank you to our sponsors. We really appreciate you sponsoring us, so it allows us to keep doing the podcast. Do follow us on @LibDemPod on all our social media. Feel free to comment below, share, because there are Lib Dems that don't know we exist still, Richard, which is unbelievable after 2 years. But we'll
absolutely. Let's go for it. I know. Are we still watched regularly in Portsmouth, Ohio?
I haven't checked the figures. We should check. We're still, once this coronavirus, we should do an episode from Portsmouth, Ohio.
Yeah, I think you and I should both go over and say, "Do you know who we are?" And find everyone saying no.
No.
Okay. Good luck, everyone.
Good luck, everyone. Thank you very much for watching.